So here's their stab at Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams' Instagram post draws rebukes from Chinese-Canadian organization social media users. Warning, this story contains offensive language. Oh, did Bryan Adams swear? Did he use a racist word? He didn't swear at Chinese people. He didn't use a racist word, but the CBC wants to hype this up a bit. Look at that construction of the headline. Some social media users are mad. I got a bit of a secret for you, and maybe you already know it. Some social media users are always mad at something because you've got, 2 billion people around the world on Facebook alone, and everyone has a comment on something. So that's not really the definition of news, but it's a trick that weak journalists use when they want to gin up a story and don't really have a lot to go on other than their own opinions. They want to turn it into news, just like when the CBC went after the Epoch Times newspaper. They literally quoted one woman, a liberal woman in BC, who simply said she thought the Epoch Times was racist or something, even though she is white and the Epoch Times is an ethnically Chinese newspaper. That random person from BC was not an expert or an authoritative source on China, racism, or anything. She was just literally one out of 37.5 million Canadians who said something. The CBC then turned into Canadians upset. That was their headline. Yeah, a more accurate headline would have been Canadian upset. It's the same fake news here. A prominent Chinese-Canadian activist said she is shocked, disappointed, and angry about an Instagram post on Canadian singer Bryan Adams' official account that she and others say is racist. Oh, so this time it's a prominent woman, not just some random person like in their Epoch Times smear. I wonder who that prominent person is. I can hardly wait to find out. I like following prominent people. The post contains a snippet of Adams singing his hit song, Cuts Like a Knife. An accompanying description expresses his frustration that COVID-19 related restrictions have led to the postponing of 3 shows at the Royal Albert Hall in London, England. Okay, I'm waiting for the racist part still. Tonight was supposed to be the beginning of a tendency of gigs at Royal Albert Hall, but thanks to some effing bat-eating, wet market animal-selling, virus-making, greeting bastards, the whole world is now on hold, the Post read. My message to them and other than thanks an effing lot is go vegan. Okay, so I guess that's the offensive language part, his pro-vegan swear. So where's this prominent person I was promised? Oh, here. Amy Go, the president. Wow, that's very senior. The president of the Chinese-Canadian National Council for Social Justice called the Post racist and believes it could stoke hatred to Chinese Canadians. Quote, people look up to public figures. He is seen as an idol by many, Go said. It justifies this racist hatred against Chinese. This is so irresponsible, just so racist. You know it's very racist because she said so 4 times. As the coronavirus pandemic has spread, many have raised concerns about growing anti-Asian and anti-Chinese racism in Canada, with reports of anti-Asian hate crimes on the rise in Vancouver, including physical and verbal attacks. Okay, Amy Go, I guess, is the prominent person we were promised. I had never heard of her. Have you? I know plenty of prominent Chinese Canadians. There are plenty of Chinese Canadians in high stations in life in Canada, in business, in politics of every party. Amy Go. Doesn't ring a bell. How about that group, the Chinese-Canadian National Council for Social Justice? Have you ever heard of them before? They're prominent. The CBC just said so it's got to be true. Now, I found their website. It looks like the organization was just invented a few months ago. They announced they were formed, and then they only had a couple of small notices until this year. They're literally a new creation. They had a student panel at a law school. Co-sponsor was someone else. That's all they pretty much did in 2019 at the very end, until the Chinese virus came to Canada in January, when they started piping up, calling everyone racist who complained about the pandemic. Seriously, I went through their entire website. There wasn't a substantive thing they did until just 3 days after the first virus patient came from China to Canada. In February, they submitted a paper to a parliamentary committee calling Canadians racist. And then their big thing before the virus shut down the whole world was they took to the streets of Toronto dressed in a virus-style hazmat suit, handing out hand sanitizer, saying to stop the spread of racism. And they set up a website promoting that stunt. I'd be scared if someone came up to me in the streets in a hazmat suit. Very creepy, very Chinese state propaganda-ish. So not so much concerned about the virus, but pretty concerned about fighting racism. Okay, it's weird. They sound like Chinese state propaganda, though. In fact, they have a video clip on their website of China's man in the WHO calling everyone racist. Remember this?
It's so painful to see the level of stigma we're observing. Of course, we're human beings, we're not angels. We make mistakes. But at the same time, we can make rational decisions too. And we can have the right attitude and behavior. The stigma is more dangerous than the virus itself.
Okay, so who funded this whole thing that was created out of nowhere? I couldn't tell. There was no About Us section on their homemade website. But if you scroll right down to the bottom, you find a link to the brand new organization I mentioned before, and you see something called Hive. I'd heard of that. That's a professional ad agency. Pretty fancy, pretty pricey. So you have an online group that was just created a few months ago, really didn't do anything of note until the virus came. And then they go from zero to launching a full-blown ad agency constructed propaganda campaign, not public health information about the virus, but a political campaign to demonize Canadians as racist by nature. It's produced by a costly ad agency. We have no info on either the campaign website or the organization's website about who their funding comes from, who runs it, including whether they take foreign funding, including whether they take funding from the Chinese embassy or from the China-run World Health Organization. Isn't that odd? Now, the CBC didn't mention that, did they? They didn't mention any of that. They called them, what did they say again? A prominent Chinese-Canadian activist. Really? Prominent. You know, you could find my email address and phone number on the internet with a quick Google. I got about 10 email addresses. They all really do come here. I got staff helping read through. You can contact me in about 5 minutes if you tried, and I'm not that prominent. So I tried to contact this very prominent person, very famous, very credible, definitely not just some random person, and definitely for sure, absolutely not just a paid propagandist for a Chinese political organ. Never, never, no. So. She absolutely came up with the money for this fancy ad agency by herself. It's Bryan Adams who needs investigating for being against eating bats, the racist. Is the CBC being used as a tool by a foreign government again? Meddling in Canadian politics, spreading disinformation? They sure seem to be in their recent smear against the Epoch Times. And one of the journalists in this Bryan Adams story, Katie Nicholson, was in on that Epoch Times smear too. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.